June 14, 1944, Château de Bénouville, Normandy, France. Oberst Heinrich von Kluge set down his intelligence report with calculated precision, his leather gloves creaking against the polished mahogany table. His face, weathered from 3 years of Eastern Front service, arranged itself into an expression of contempt. "Look at this," von Kluge said, pushing the document toward his subordinates with 2 fingers as though touching something diseased. "The Americans are sending their toy tanks, 33 tons against our 70-ton Tigers." Major Wilhelm Hartmann, Chief Intelligence Officer for the 21st Panzer Division, leaned forward to examine the specifications. "The armor is barely adequate, Herr Oberst. Their main gun, a 75, it's the same weapon the French used in 1940. Hauptmann Ernst Richter, the division's senior tactical officer, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Intelligence suggests their production numbers are unprecedented, Herr Oberst." "Perhaps quantity," but von Kluge waved him off with an irritated gesture. "Quantity means nothing against quality, Hauptmann. At Kursk, a single Tiger destroyed 27 T-34s. At Villers-Bocage last week, Whitman's Tiger destroyed 25 British tanks and 28 armored vehicles in 15 minutes. At Prokhorovka, our Panthers achieved kill ratios of 10-1. He tapped the report with his finger. "Their Sherman has riveted armor that fractures under impact, a gasoline engine that burns like a torch, and ammunition storage that makes every hit a catastrophe. Our intelligence reports their own crews call them Ronsons. They light first time every time." The mathematics were undeniable. German armor superiority was measured in thickness of steel, velocity of shell, and the corpses of inferior machines. What von Kluge didn't know, what none of them could have known as they reviewed intelligence reports in that 18th-century Château, was that American industrial capacity would destroy the Wehrmacht's armored divisions within 6 months. The numbers would become apocalyptic. 50,000 Sherman tanks against 6,000 German heavy tanks. American factories produced more tanks in a single month than Germany manufactured in an entire year. The 21st Panzer Division would lose 127 tanks in the first 3 weeks of combat against American forces. The mockery in that Château would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 4,735,000 German military deaths, and the complete destruction of the Third Reich's armored capability. The confidence was built on accomplishment. At Normandy's beaches, German 88 guns had destroyed Allied armor at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. At Caen, Panzer divisions had stopped British advances with mathematical efficiency, 3 German tanks for every 20 Allied machines destroyed. At every engagement since France fell in 1940, German armor had demonstrated crushing superiority. The Tiger tank's 88 gun could penetrate 180 of armor at 1,000 meters. The Sherman's 75 could barely manage 75 of penetration at the same range. A Tiger's frontal armor measured 100 of sloped steel. A Sherman's measured 51. The mathematical relationship was straightforward. German tanks could kill American tanks at ranges where American guns couldn't even scratch German armor. The specifications told the story. Tiger I. Weight 57 tons, armor 25-100, main gun 88 kWK 36L56, muzzle velocity 810 meters per second, maximum effective range 2,500 meters. Panther, weight 45 tons, armor 30-80, main gun 75 kWK 42L70, muzzle velocity 935 meters per second, penetration characteristics superior to any Allied tank gun. M4 Sherman, weight 33 tons, armor 1376, main gun 75 M3, muzzle velocity 619 meters per second, maximum effective range 800 meters against comparable armor. The numbers created a hierarchy. German armor engaged from positions of absolute superiority. Recent American failures confirmed the assessment. At Kasserine Pass in February 1943, German armor had destroyed 183 American tanks while losing 29. At Fade Pass, 2 Panzer divisions had annihilated an entire American armored formation, 98 tanks destroyed in 4 hours. At Sidi Bouzid, American M4 Shermans had burned by the dozen. The 1st Armored Division had lost 112 tanks in 3 days of combat. American tankers abandoned their vehicles rather than face German 88 fire. First Army's after-action reports documented the catastrophe. Sherman tank inadequate against German armor, crew survivability minimal, morale severely compromised. Oberst Heinrich von Kluge had earned his contempt through experience. He had commanded Panzer units during the invasion of France, destroying 47 Allied tanks with only 2 German losses. At Smolensk, his battalion had crushed a Soviet armored brigade, 83 kills confirmed. He had survived Stalingrad, fought at Kursk, and earned the Knight's Cross with oak leaves for destroying more than 120 enemy armored vehicles in 31 months of continuous combat. His battalion had maintained kill ratios exceeding 8-1 across 3 theaters of war. When von Kluge assessed American armor as inadequate, he spoke from the authority of 847 days of armored combat and personal responsibility for the destruction of Allied mechanized warfare. Major Wilhelm Hartmann presented his analysis to division headquarters on June 16, 1944. Production intelligence indicates American output exceeds previous estimates. Herr Oberst. Factories in Detroit, Gary, and Grand Blanc are producing Shermans at unprecedented rates. A single facility in Lima, Ohio, is manufacturing complete tanks at a rate that approaches our entire national output. Hartmann laid out reconnaissance photographs of American assembly facilities. This facility alone produces more monthly than the Henschel plant at Kassel. Von Kluge examined the photographs with professional interest but evident skepticism. Major, did our intelligence not report that American automotive factories required 18 months to retool for tank production? That their industrial capacity was optimized for consumer goods, not military equipment? That their workforce lacked the technical sophistication for precision manufacturing? Hartmann nodded slowly. The reports suggested exactly that, Herr Oberst. The evidence suggests the reports were incorrect. Hauptmann Ernst Richter had experienced American firepower firsthand during the Normandy landings. As tactical liaison officer, he had witnessed the naval bombardment that preceded the invasion, 16-inch shells delivering more explosive force than anything the Wehrmacht possessed. He had counted 156 Sherman tanks landing on a single beach sector in 6 hours. He had observed American artillery concentrations that made German counter-battery fire seem like individual rifle shots. The Americans have capacity we don't understand, Richter reported to von Kluge. They don't have better equipment. They simply have more of everything. Their supply trains stretch to the horizon. Their artillery ammunition arrives in truck convoys 40 vehicles long. They fire preparatory barrages that expend more shells than our entire army group has in reserve. Von Kluge had listened with the patience accorded to junior officers reporting battlefield stress. The issue is not quantity but application, Hauptmann. Americans have industrial capacity for consumer goods. Germans have precision manufacturing for weapons of war. There is a difference. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. German tank production in 1943, 12,063 tanks and assault guns. American tank production in 1943, 29,497 tanks, but German armor included Tigers and Panthers, each worth 5 Shermans in combat value. American tanks were mechanically reliable but tactically worthless against German armor. The calculation was simple. Quality multiplied by tactical superiority exceeded raw quantity. A single Tiger battalion could destroy an entire American armored regiment. The mathematics had proven reliable across 3 years of industrial warfare. Detroit, Michigan, March 1942. William Knudsen watched the first M4 Sherman tank roll off the Chrysler Tank Arsenal assembly line at 3:47 p.m. on April 11, 1942. The tank arsenal produced its first complete tank 109 days after groundbreaking, a facility built from empty field to operational production faster than any comparable manufacturing plant in human history. Chrysler Tank Arsenal produced 11 Sherman tanks daily by July 1942. Every 18 hours, another 33 tons of armored fighting vehicle rolled off the assembly line. Production progression followed exponential curves that defied European industrial experience. In January 1942, America produced just 243 medium tanks monthly, scattered across 5 facilities still learning tank manufacturing. By July 1942, production reached 1,087 medium tanks monthly across 11 facilities, achieving operational tempo. By December 1942, American factories manufactured 1,731 medium tanks monthly. By March 1943, a single facility, the Grand Blanc Tank Arsenal in Michigan, was producing 14 complete Sherman tanks daily, 434 monthly. This single facility was producing more than the entire German tank industry manufactured in January 1941. Dorothy Mueller, previously a seamstress at a Detroit dress manufacturer, now operated a turret ring assembly station at the Chrysler Tank Arsenal. She positioned, aligned, and secured the turret race assemblies that allowed Sherman turrets to rotate. Her station completed 17 turret assemblies per shift, 119 per week, 476 per month. Each assembly required precision manufacturing to tolerances of 0.005 inches. Mueller worked an 8-hour shift, received $42 weekly, and produced more complete turret assemblies in 1 week than the entire Henschel plant at Kassel produced in 3 weeks. Her single station's output exceeded the complete turret production of Krupp's Essen facility during January 1942. She arrived at 6:00 a.m., completed her shift at 2:30 p.m. with a 30-minute lunch break, and went home to her 3 children while the evening shift replicated her production. The mathematics were straightforward. 3 shifts of Dorothy Mueller produced 51 turret assemblies daily. Germany's entire tank production required only 47 turret assemblies daily to meet March 1942 output levels. Robert Washington, from Gary, Indiana, operated the main gun barrel boring machine at the Fisher Tank Arsenal. His machine bored, rifled, and finished 75 tank gun barrels. The barrel boring process required 11 hours of continuous machining to achieve the precision necessary for accurate gunnery at combat ranges. Washington's machine produced 2.18 gun barrels daily, running continuously across 3 shifts with different operators. The Fisher facility operated 47 barrel boring machines. Daily output, 103 complete gun barrels. Monthly output, 3,090 gun barrels. His single machine's daily output, operated by 3 workers across 3 shifts, exceeded the entire daily gun barrel production of Skoda works in Czechoslovakia. The single Fisher facility produced more tank gun barrels monthly than all German, Czech, and Austrian gun barrel facilities combined produced during the first quarter of 1942. Charles Wilson, $1-a-year man from General Motors, managed logistics coordination for the Tank Automotive Center in Warren, Michigan. Wilson had previously served as president of General Motors, earning $201,000 annually. He now earned $1 per year managing the coordination of 17 separate tank production facilities, 47 component manufacturers, and 141 sub-tier suppliers. Wilson's logistics network moved 14,700 tons of raw materials daily. A single day's steel movement exceeded the entire monthly steel allocation for German tank production. His office coordinated railway scheduling that moved more tonnage weekly than the entire Wehrmacht transported during the invasion of Poland. Wilson worked from a basement office with 4 telephones, 3 secretaries, and direct communication lines to the War Production Board. He managed industrial capacity that exceeded the gross domestic product of the entire German Reich. Americans discarded enough steel scrap daily to build 17 Tiger tanks. The metal filings and cutting waste from a single shift at the Grand Blanc tank arsenal weighed 11.7 tons. Germany allocated 8.3 tons of armor plate monthly to the entire Panzer Lehr division. Americans threw away more hardened steel in manufacturing waste than Germany allocated to frontline combat divisions. The waste from single operations exceeded enemy total capacity for finished production. Workers threw away aluminum turret castings that failed quality inspection at rates that horrified efficiency experts. The Fisher Tank Arsenal rejected 147 turret castings in June 1942 for minor porosity defects, imperfections that would never affect combat performance but violated American quality specifications. Those 147 rejected castings represented 67 tons of aircraft-grade aluminum. Germany allocated 41 tons of aluminum monthly to Messerschmitt for fighter aircraft production. American tank workers discarded more aluminum in quality control rejections than Germany allocated to fighter production. The cafeteria at Chrysler Tank Arsenal discarded more beef daily than German frontline troops received weekly. Workers ate subsidized meals, roast beef, potatoes, vegetables, pie, coffee for 35 cents. The facility served 14,000 meals daily. Food waste averaged 18%. 520 meals worth of discarded food daily, 17,640 meals weekly. The 21st Panzer Division, 13,847 men strong, received meat rations equivalent to 9,200 meals weekly. The waste from a single American factory cafeteria exceeded total meat rations for an entire Panzer division. Discarded ammunition in testing exceeded enemy combat allocation. The Aberdeen Proving Ground test fired 47,000 rounds of 75 ammunition monthly in quality assurance testing of gun barrels, ammunition lots, and fire control systems. Every round was fired once and never used in combat, pure quality verification. The 1st SS Panzer Division received 31,000 rounds of 75 ammunition monthly for all combat operations. American testing protocols expended more ammunition than Germany allocated to elite combat divisions. The single-transmission testing facility at the General Motors Hydromatic plant in Ypsilanti, Michigan consumed more petroleum products weekly than the entire 7th Panzer Division received monthly. Transmission testing required running each transmission through 147-hour endurance cycles at full load. Each transmission consumed 17 gallons of petroleum products during testing. The facility tested 340 transmissions weekly. Petroleum consumption: 5,780 gallons weekly, 23,120 gallons monthly. The 7th Panzer Division received 19,400 gallons of fuel monthly for all combat operations, maintenance, and logistics. This single testing facility consumed more petroleum than a Panzer Division burned in combat. Major Wilhelm Hartmann filed his industrial production report on July 8, 1942. American tank production exceeds all previous intelligence estimates. The Ford Motor Company has constructed a tank facility at Highland Park capable of producing complete vehicles at automotive production rates. Single facility output: 310 tanks monthly. Total American output: approximately 1,500 medium tanks monthly. German production: 472 tanks and assault guns monthly. The industrial disparity represents an existential threat that requires immediate strategic response. The report was filed, acknowledged, and substantially ignored. German military leadership focused on tactical superiority, not industrial mathematics. One Tiger was worth 10 Shermans. The mathematics of quality versus quantity favored German engineering. July 26, 1944, near Saint-Lô, France, 6:47 hours. Hauptmann Ernst Richter was conducting morning reconnaissance patrol from his Panzer IV command tank when his gunner reported movement at 1,200 meters. Richter raised his binoculars to observe what his training and experience identified as American M4 Sherman tanks advancing in column formation through morning fog. At 6:47 hours, 5 Sherman tanks emerged from hedgerow cover. At 6:48 hours, Richter's gunner acquired the lead tank. At 06:48:23, the lead Sherman exploded, turret separating from hull. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction: 23 seconds. Kill time: 23 seconds. At 06:48:41, the second Sherman attempted to reverse into cover. Kill time: 18 seconds. The tank exploded with the characteristic violence of ammunition detonation, turret flying 12 meters laterally before impacting ground. At 06:49:03, the third Sherman fired while in motion. The round impacted 27 meters short. German return fire achieved penetration at 06:49:15. Kill time: 12 seconds. The 4th and 5th Shermans deployed smoke and attempted tactical withdrawal. At 06:49:44, Richter's wingman achieved penetration on the 4th tank. Kill time: 29 seconds. At 06:50:11, the 5th Sherman disappeared into hedgerow cover. Elapsed time from first engagement: 3 minutes 11 seconds. American tanks destroyed: 4. Crew casualties estimated at 16 killed. German losses: 0. Kill ratio: 4-0. But the 5th Sherman had radioed contact. At 7:17 hours, 18 Sherman tanks advanced on Richter's position with infantry support and artillery preparation. The American approach demonstrated doctrine, not finesse, artillery saturation followed by massed armor assault. Richter's 3-tank platoon engaged at maximum effective range. At 07:19:22, first kill achieved at 1,340 meters. Kill time: 31 seconds. At 07:19:58, second kill. Kill time: 36 seconds, but American tanks continued advancing through German fire. At 07:21:14, American return fire achieved its first hit, a penetration of Richter's wingman's turret face. The Panzer IV burned. Elapsed time from engagement to German loss, 4 minutes 8 seconds. The volume of American fire created effects that tactical doctrine hadn't predicted. 18 Sherman tanks firing at maximum rate generated overlapping fields of fire that made German maneuver impossible. At 0723:47, American armor penetrated German defensive positions through sheer weight of metal. Richter ordered withdrawal. At 0724:15, his second wingman took 3 hits simultaneously. The Panzer IV exploded. At 0725:03, Richter's own tank took a glancing hit that destroyed the right track. His crew abandoned the vehicle under American artillery fire. Total engagement duration, 8 minutes 3 seconds. German tanks destroyed, 3. Crew casualties, 7 killed, 4 wounded. American losses, 6 Sherman tanks destroyed. American crew casualties estimated at 21 killed or wounded. Kill ratio, 6-3. But the Americans still held the field. They would recover their disabled vehicles. They would repair and return them to service. Richter and his surviving crew members walked 8 kilometers to German lines, while American armor consolidated the position they had just abandoned. The ammunition expended in this 8-minute engagement exceeded the monthly 75 allocation for the entire German strongpoint network defending St. Lo. At 11:30 hours, Richter reported to Major Hartmann at division headquarters. The Americans don't fight like we do. They don't maneuver for advantage. They advance directly, absorb losses, and continue attacking. We destroyed 6 of their tanks. They had 12 more. We lost 3 tanks. We had 3 tanks. Hartmann recorded the engagement in his intelligence log. Kill ratio favors German armor 2-1. Tactical outcome, German withdrawal from defensive position. American objective achieved despite superior German combat performance. He looked at Richter with an expression the Hauptmann couldn't identify. They can afford to lose 2 tanks for every one of ours. We can't afford to lose any. The mathematics are becoming problematic. Oberst von Kluge reviewed the engagement reports from 17 separate actions on July 26, 1944. German forces had destroyed 41 American tanks while losing 19 German tanks. Kill ratio, 2:16:1. But American forces had advanced 4.7 kilometers. German forces had withdrawn from 8 defensive positions. American armor continued attacking. German armor required maintenance, fuel, and ammunition that logistics couldn't deliver. This is acceptable, von Kluge said to his staff. We are destroying their armor at rates they cannot sustain. Major Hartmann said nothing. He had reviewed American production reports. America had manufactured 1,467 Sherman tanks in June 1944. Germany had manufactured 314 tanks of all types. The Americans could sustain these losses indefinitely. Germany could not. Richter spent the evening of July 26 at a field maintenance facility watching mechanics cannibalize 3 damaged Panzer IVs to produce 1 operational tank. We're pulling parts from knocked-out tanks to keep others running, the senior mechanic explained. No spare parts arrive. No replacement vehicles arrive. We have 47 tanks operational in the division. We started Normandy with 146 tanks. Richter watched a mechanic remove a transmission from a tank destroyed 3 weeks earlier. The mechanic would install it in a tank that had thrown its transmission that morning. How long can we sustain this? Richter asked. The mechanic didn't look up from his work. We can't, Herr Hauptmann. We're losing capability faster than we can recover it. Intelligence dismissed the engagement reports as statistical anomalies reflecting local tactical failures, not systemic problems. American armor remains inferior to German equipment, the divisional intelligence summary stated. Kill ratios confirm German tactical and technical superiority. Current engagements demonstrate the effectiveness of German defensive doctrine against American offensive operations. Oberst von Kluge read the intelligence summary and initialed his approval. The mathematics supported the assessment. German armor achieved superior kill ratios in nearly every engagement. But Major Hartmann noted a different metric in his private log. German forces withdrew from positions in 73% of engagements, despite achieving favorable kill ratios. American forces continued offensive operations after absorbing losses that would have destroyed German combat effectiveness. Industrial capacity appears to be compensating for tactical inferiority. The warning came from Hartmann in formal intelligence briefing on July 29, 1944. American tank production exceeds German production by ratios approaching 5-1. A single American factory produces more tanks monthly than German industry produces in the same period. The Chrysler tank arsenal produces 434 Sherman tanks monthly. Total German tank production averages 370 tanks monthly across all types. This single American facility exceeds our entire national industrial capacity. Hartmann presented production charts showing American output curves rising exponentially while German production remained flat or declined. The mathematics are becoming catastrophic, Herr Oberst. We can achieve tactical victories indefinitely. We cannot achieve strategic survival. American production in July 1944, 1,504 medium tanks, 287 light tanks, 542 tank destroyers. German production in July 1944, 354 tanks of all types. American production exceeded German production by 6.51 in medium tanks. A single American production facility, the Lima Tank Depot in Ohio, produced 426 Sherman tanks in July 1944. This single facility produced more tanks than the entire German industrial base. This single facility's monthly output exceeded total German production across Henschel, MAN, Daimler-Benz, MNH, MIAG, and Alkit combined. The statistics created mathematical certainty of industrial defeat. American factories produced one Sherman tank every 47 minutes. German factories produced one Panther tank every 11 hours. The time differential meant American production output matched German production every 2.5 hours for every 11 hours of German production. Extended across a month, American facilities produced 1,800 medium tanks, while German facilities produced 270 comparable tanks. The ratio, 6:67:1, represented industrial capacity differential that no amount of tactical proficiency could overcome. Failed tactics accumulated through early August. German forces tried concentrated armor attacks. American artillery destroyed formations before they could achieve breakthrough. They attempted dispersed defensive tactics. American numerical superiority overwhelmed distributed forces. They tried night attacks. American artillery illumination and concentrated machine gun fire made darkness irrelevant. They attempted infiltration tactics. American infantry density prevented maneuver. August 7, 1944, Mort in France, 23:15 hours. The counteroffensive began at 23:15 hours with 120 German tanks advancing on American positions near Mortain. Weather conditions favored German operations. Fog and low clouds prevented American air support. German armor achieved complete tactical surprise. At 23:41 hours, lead German elements engaged American defensive positions. At 23:44 hours, 8 Sherman tanks burned on the defensive perimeter. At 23:47 hours, German armor penetrated the American line. At 13 hours, German forces had advanced 3.2 kilometers and destroyed 17 American tanks. The counteroffensive appeared to be achieving its objective, cutting off American forces advancing toward Falaise. But American doctrine didn't require tactical elegance. At 27 hours, American reserves, 47 Sherman tanks from the 3rd Armored Division, arrived at the breakthrough point. At 42 hours, American tank destroyers, 31 M10 and M36 vehicles, established blocking positions. At 58 hours, American artillery began firing time-on-target concentrations that delivered 1,200 rounds per fire mission onto German approach routes. The weight of American response didn't demonstrate superior tactics. It demonstrated unlimited material capacity. The engagement at Mortain lasted from August 7 at 23:15 hours until August 12 at 1400 hours, 4 days, 15 hours, 45 minutes of continuous combat. German forces committed 120 tanks to the offensive. American forces committed 214 tanks and tank destroyers. German forces destroyed 73 American tanks. American forces destroyed 97 German tanks. Kill ratio. Americans losing more tanks than they destroyed. But on August 12, German forces withdrew. American forces held the field. The Americans recovered 41 damaged tanks for repair. The Germans abandoned 53 destroyed or damaged tanks to American salvage teams. The mathematics of industrial warfare didn't favor the side with better kill ratios. It favored the side that could replace losses. Recognition came in formal intelligence briefing on August 14, 1944. Major Wilhelm Hartmann presented his analysis to remaining division staff. American tank losses at Mortain, 73 destroyed or damaged. American tank recovery, 41 vehicles recovered for repair. American tank replacement, 87 new Sherman tanks arrived during the 4-day engagement. Net American tank strength after Morton, increased by 55 tanks. German tank losses, 97 destroyed or damaged. German tank recovery, 7 vehicles recovered for repair. German replacement tanks received, 0. Net German tank strength after Morton, decreased by 90 tanks. Hartmann looked at his audience with the expression of a man presenting mathematical proof of certain death. We are destroying ourselves through tactical victory. But Oberst von Kluge still refused the mathematics. American tanks remain inferior equipment. Sherman armor is inadequate. Sherman armament is insufficient. Sherman mobility is compromised by mechanical unreliability. Our losses reflect tactical circumstances, not equipment inferiority. He rejected Hartmann's analysis as defeatist. 1 Tiger is worth 10 Shermans. 1 Panther is worth 5 Shermans. The mathematics favor German armor. Hartmann didn't argue. He simply noted in his intelligence log, Commander rejects statistical analysis, continues to base strategic assessment on tactical performance metrics rather than industrial capacity metrics. Outcome appears determined. Hauptmann Ernst Richter observed the escalation from his position as tactical liaison officer. His duties involved coordinating defensive operations across multiple combat sectors. On August 15, he counted 42 Sherman tanks advancing on a 2-kilometer front against 9 operational German tanks. On August 16, he counted 67 Sherman tanks conducting a coordinated assault against defensive positions held by 11 German tanks. On August 17, he counted 93 American tanks operating in a sector where 21 German tanks had operated 2 weeks earlier. They're not out fighting us, Richter wrote in his personal journal. They're drowning us. Every engagement costs them more tanks than it costs us. But every morning they have more tanks than the morning before. Every morning we have fewer tanks than the morning before. The mathematics are inexorable. Grand Blanc, Michigan, August 1944. At the Grand Blanc tank arsenal, production had achieved industrial rhythm that defied European manufacturing experience. The facility operated 3 shifts, 6:00 a.m. to 2:00 p.m. 2:00 p.m. to 10:00 p.m. 10:00 p.m. to 6:00 a.m. with 30-minute shift change periods. Each shift produced 14 complete Sherman tanks. Daily output, 42 tanks. Weekly output, 294 tanks. Monthly output, 1,260 tanks. This single facility produced more tanks monthly than Germany produced during any month of 1944. American discarded more copper wiring daily than Germany allocated to tank electrical systems monthly. Workers threw away wiring that failed insulation testing. 3. 7 miles of copper wire daily. Germany allocated 2.1 miles of copper wire weekly to Henschel for Tiger production. The waste from Grand Blanc's metal cutting operations exceeded Germany's monthly armor plate allocation. The facility cut, shaped, and welded armor plate for hulls, turrets, and glacis plates. Cutting operations generated metal shavings, edge trimmings, and rejected plates. Daily waste, 14.7 tons of armor-grade steel. Monthly waste, 441 tons. Germany allocated 318 tons of armor plate monthly to Panther production during August 1944. This single facility's waste exceeded Germany's entire allocation for main battle tank production. The facility discarded more armor-grade steel in manufacturing waste than Germany converted into finished combat vehicles. Workers threw away food that German soldiers would have considered luxury rations. The factory cafeteria served 3 hot meals daily to 14,000 workers. Breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, coffee, orange juice. Lunch, meat, potatoes, vegetables, bread, butter, dessert, milk, or coffee. Dinner, similar portions for night shift. Food waste averaged 18% of served meals. Daily waste, 2,520 meals worth of food. The waste included 454 pounds of meat, 680 pounds of bread, 340 pounds of vegetables, 142 pounds of butter. A single day's cafeteria waste exceeded weekly food rations for a German infantry battalion, 721 soldiers receiving 411 pounds of meat weekly, 620 pounds of bread, 207 pounds of vegetables, 38 pounds of butter. Aluminum scrap from turret casting exceeded Germany's monthly aircraft allocation. The Fischer body plant in Grand Blanc cast aluminum turrets for Sherman tanks using sand casting methods that generated significant scrap. Each turret casting produced 47 pounds of scrap aluminum, gates, runners, and risers that were melted and recast. Daily turret production, 42 turrets. Daily scrap generation, 1,974 pounds of aluminum, almost exactly 1 ton. Monthly scrap, 59,220 pounds, 29.6 tons. Germany allocated 24.7 tons of aluminum monthly to Messerschmitt for Me-262 fighter production during August 1944. This single facility's scrap exceeded Germany's entire monthly allocation for jet fighter manufacturing. Discarded ammunition in testing and training exceeded frontline combat allocation. Aberdeen Proving Ground fired 4,700 rounds of 75 ammunition weekly in testing. The Armored Force School at Fort Knox fired 8,200 rounds weekly in crew training. The Desert Training Center in California fired 12,100 rounds weekly in tactical exercises. Total weekly ammunition expenditure in non-combat operations, 25,000 rounds. Monthly, 100,000 rounds. The 21st Panzer Division received 31,000 rounds monthly for all combat operations. American testing and training protocols expended more than 3 times the combat ammunition allocation for an entire Panzer Division. This single aspect of American operations exceeded entire enemy nations' combat allocation. The petroleum waste from testing exceeded German combat operations. The General Motors Proving Ground in Milford, Michigan tested transmissions, engines, and complete vehicles. Each tank underwent 147 hours of testing. Fuel consumption during testing, 847 gallons per vehicle. Weekly testing volume, 84 vehicles. Weekly fuel consumption, 71,148 gallons. Monthly, 284,592 gallons. The 7th Panzer Division received 19,400 gallons of fuel monthly for all combat operations, logistics, and maintenance. This single testing facility consumed fuel at rates 14 times higher than a German Panzer Division's entire monthly allocation. The waste inherent in American quality assurance exceeded German combat capability. Rubber waste from track production exceeded Germany's entire military allocation. The Firestone plant in Akron, Ohio manufactured rubber track blocks for Sherman tanks. Each Sherman required 158 track blocks. Production volume, 6,636 track blocks daily. But rubber track manufacturing generated significant waste, flash, runners, and rejected blocks. Waste rate, 8%. Daily rubber waste, 531 track blocks worth of rubber, 4,779 pounds. Monthly waste, 143,370 pounds of rubber, 72 tons. Germany allocated 47 tons of rubber monthly to all military production during August 1944, trucks, aircraft, small equipment. This single American facility wasted more rubber monthly than Germany allocated to its entire military-industrial base. Major Wilhelm Hartmann received industrial intelligence summaries that made previous estimates seem conservative. American tank production August 1944, 1,467 M4 Sherman tanks. Additional production, 287 M5 light tanks, 542 M10 and M36 tank destroyers. Total monthly armored vehicle production, 2,296 vehicles. German production August 1944, 327 tanks of all types, 214 assault guns. Total German armored vehicle production, 541 vehicles. The disparity, 4, 24, 1 in total vehicles, 4, 49, 1 in medium tanks. The intelligence summary included a comparison that Hartmann found simultaneously fascinating and horrifying. The Chrysler tank arsenal alone produces 434 tanks monthly. The Lima Tank Depot produces 426 tanks monthly. These two facilities produce 860 tanks monthly. Total German production, 541 armored vehicles monthly. 2 American facilities exceed entire German industrial output. The statistics accumulated into irrefutable proof of industrial catastrophe. American production capacity, 1,467 Sherman tanks monthly. German production capacity, 327 tanks monthly. American tank production per day, 49 tanks. German tank production per day, 11 tanks. American facilities produced 4.45 tanks for every single German tank. The ratio had actually worsened since June. American production was increasing while German production declined under strategic bombing pressure. A single American production facility, the Fisher Tank Arsenal, produced 14 tanks daily, 98 weekly, 420 monthly. This single facility's output exceeded total German production by 29%. This single facility produced more than Henschel, MAN, Daimler-Benz, and MNH combined. August 25, 1944, Falaise Pocket, France. 247 German tanks faced 412 American and British tanks in the final breakout attempt from the Falaise encirclement. The engagement lasted from August 17 through August 21, 4 days of continuous armored combat. German forces attempted to break through Allied lines to escape encirclement. American and British forces attempted to close the pocket and destroy German forces trapped inside. Minute-by-minute breakdown of August 19 engagement at Chambois. At 5:47 hours, 47 German tanks, 19 Panthers, 23 Panzer IVs, 5 Tigers engaged American positions. At 5:49 hours, 3 Sherman tanks destroyed. Kill time per tank, 31 seconds, 47 seconds, 29 seconds. At 5:51 hours, American return fire destroyed 1st Panzer IV. Kill time, 114 seconds from first German shot. At 5:54 hours, 2 more Panthers destroyed. Kill times, 97 seconds, 104 seconds. At 5:58 hours, reinforcing American armor, 31 Sherman tanks from 2nd Armored Division entered engagement from German flank. At 6:02 hours, 6 German tanks burning. American losses, 5 tanks destroyed. At 6:09 hours, American artillery began firing time-on-target missions onto German assembly areas. Fire mission size, 240 rounds per concentration. At 6:14 hours, 9 more German tanks engaged. At 6:17 hours, 4 destroyed. Kill times, 41 seconds, 38 seconds, 52 seconds, 47 seconds. At 6:21 hours, American tank destroyers, 17 M36 vehicles with 90 guns, achieved firing positions at 1,200 meters. At 6:23 hours, 1st Tiger destroyed by M36. Kill time, 67 seconds. At 6:29 hours, German forces attempted tactical withdrawal. American forces pursued. At 6:47 hours, 11 additional German tanks destroyed during withdrawal. 0 American losses during pursuit phase. Total engagement August 19, Chambois sector, duration 3 hours 47 minutes. German tanks engaged 47. German tanks destroyed 29. German tanks withdrawn 18. American tanks engaged 93. American tanks destroyed 14. Kill ratio 2:071 favoring German gunnery. Tactical outcome German withdrawal. American forces held position. The ammunition expended in this engagement exceeded German monthly allocation for the entire Normandy front. American artillery fired 14,700 rounds of 105 ammunition in support of armored operations, more than Germany allocated to all artillery battalions in France. The fuel consumed in this engagement exceeded German weekly allocation. American armor operated continuously for 3 hours and 47 minutes. Fuel consumption per Sherman, 17 gallons per hour. Fuel consumption for 93 tanks, 1,581 gallons per hour, 5,962 gallons total engagement. Add tank destroyers, support vehicles, logistics trucks. Total fuel consumption 8,400 gallons in a single engagement. German allocation for the 7th Panzer Division, 19,400 gallons monthly. This single engagement consumed 43% of a Panzer Division's monthly fuel allocation. The Falaise pocket closed on August 21. German forces trapped inside, 50,000 soldiers, 87 tanks, 547 artillery pieces. German forces escaped, 20,000 soldiers, 7 tanks, 41 artillery pieces. German forces destroyed or captured, 30,000 casualties, 80 tanks, 506 artillery pieces. American tank losses during 4-day engagement, 41 Sherman tanks destroyed, 63 damaged. American tank replacements received during engagement, 97 new Sherman tanks arrived. Net American tank strength after engagement, increased by 33 tanks despite continuous combat operations. At 18:47 hours on August 19, Oberst Heinrich von Kluge's Panther tank took 3 hits from American tank destroyers while attempting to break through Allied lines. The first round penetrated the turret face at 1,847, 17. The second round struck the hull side at 1,847, 23. The third round detonated ammunition storage at 1,847, 31. Elapsed time from first hit to catastrophic explosion, 14 seconds. Elapsed time from engagement to death, 14 seconds. Von Kluge's final radio transmission recorded by his communications officer. "They're everywhere. We can't." The transmission ended at 1,847, 34 as his tank exploded. The officer who had mocked American toy tanks died inside a 70 million Reichsmark Panther destroyed by 3 rounds from a tank destroyer that cost $64,000 to manufacture. The engagement summary, filed by Major Hartmann on August 22, provided statistics without commentary. Total German armor committed to Falaise operations, 247 tanks. Total German armor surviving, 7 tanks. Loss rate, 97.2%. Total American and British armor committed, 412 tanks. Total Allied armor lost, 127 tanks. Allied loss rate, 30.8%. Kill ratio, 1:94, 1 favoring German gunnery. Strategic outcome, complete destruction of German armored capability in Normandy. American armor reconstituted to full strength within 72 hours through replacement vehicle allocation. German armor reconstitution impossible due to 0 replacement vehicle availability. An American tank commander's report filed on August 21 provided a different perspective. "This wasn't combat, this was systematic annihilation. We lost tanks, they lost their entire force. We received replacements, they received nothing. We attacked again the next day with more tanks than we started with. They had no tanks left to defend with." March 1945, Interrogation Center, Nancy, France. Major Wilhelm Hartmann, former intelligence officer for the 21st Panzer Division, provided testimony during his interrogation following capture near Remagen. "We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. American tank production in 1944, 17,565 Sherman tanks. German tank production in 1944, 3,932 tanks of all types. A single American factory, the Chrysler Tank Arsenal in Warren, Michigan, produced 5,208 tanks in 1944. This single American factory produced more tanks than the entire German industrial base. We calculated that American factories could replace our entire frontline tank strength every 11 days. We calculated that losing the war was a mathematical certainty beginning in July 1942, when American production reached operational tempo." Hartmann's testimony included statistical analysis that Allied intelligence found simultaneously credible and shocking. The Grand Blanc tank arsenal produced 1,260 Sherman tanks monthly during peak production. The entire German tank industry produced 327 tanks monthly during the same period. This single American facility exceeded our entire national production by 286%. The facility operated 3 shifts with 14,000 workers. Our entire tank production employed 47,000 workers across 6 major facilities. American labor productivity exceeded German productivity by factors of 8 to 1. American industrial efficiency exceeded German efficiency by ratios we couldn't comprehend. Hauptmann Ernst Richter, captured during the Rhineland campaign, provided testimony that focused on combat experience. "I saw American tanks destroyed at ratios of 2 to 1, sometimes 3 to 1. Kill ratios always favored German armor. But the next morning, Americans had more tanks than they started with. We had fewer tanks than the day before. I watched this happen for 8 months. We destroyed their tanks faster than any military force in history. They produced tanks faster than we could destroy them. The mathematics were catastrophic. Their excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. They could lose 1,500 tanks monthly and replace them in the same month. We couldn't lose 150 tanks monthly because we only produced 327 tanks monthly. Every loss was permanent. Every American loss was temporary." Additional testimony from German officers captured during final operations included consistent themes. Oberst Franz Beck, tank commander with 47 confirmed kills. "We brought precision manufacturing to industrial warfare. They brought automotive production to military operations. We built tanks like we built fine watches with care, precision, and limited output. They built tanks like they built automobiles, with standardization, interchangeable parts, and unlimited output." A Sherman tank contained 47,000 individual parts. The Chrysler arsenal produced 14 complete tanks daily, 658, 000 parts daily from a single facility. Generalmajor Heinrich von Leutwitz, former commander of the 2nd Panzer Division. We achieved tactical superiority in every engagement. We lost strategic viability in every battle. American tanks were inferior to German tanks by every metric except the only metric that mattered. They could be produced in quantities that made tactical superiority irrelevant. A Tiger tank was superior to 10 Sherman tanks. Americans built 50 Sherman tanks for every Tiger we produced. The mathematics were existential. Production statistics presented during interrogations confirmed intelligence estimates that had been dismissed during the war. American production 1942-1945, 49,324 M4 Sherman tanks. German production 1942-1945, 6,557 Panther tanks, 1,347 Tiger I tanks, 489 Tiger II tanks, total 8,393 comparable medium and heavy tanks. American production exceeded German production by 588, one in comparable categories. Single American factory production, Chrysler tank arsenal total output 1942-1945, 18,413 tanks. Entire German production of comparable tanks, 8,393 tanks. This single American factory produced 2.19 times more tanks than the entire German industrial base. The testimony included comparisons that highlighted industrial disparity. A single American facility, the Grand Blanc Tank Arsenal, employed 14,000 workers producing 1,260 tanks monthly. The Henschel plant at Kassel employed 9,200 workers producing 87 Tigers monthly. American labor productivity, 11 tanks per 100 workers per month. German labor productivity, 0.95 tanks per 100 workers per month. Americans achieved productivity ratios 11 times higher than German production. The mathematics were unambiguous. American tank production per day, 135 tanks during 1944. German tank production per day, 11 tanks during 1944. Americans produced 12 tanks for every German tank. A single American shift at the Grand Blanc Arsenal produced more tanks in 8 hours, 14 tanks, than Germany produced in an entire day, 11 tanks. The industrial disparity represented capacity differential that made military victory impossible regardless of tactical performance. The Sherman tank proved that industrial capacity determines strategic outcomes in mechanized warfare. Free workers in American factories, working 8-hour shifts with union protection and safety standards, outproduced impressed laborers in German factories working 12-hour shifts under wartime emergency protocols. Democratic cooperation exceeded totalitarian command. Industrial abundance buried ideological superiority under avalanches of steel, aluminum, copper, rubber, and petroleum products converted into 49,324 medium tanks that simply overwhelmed tactical competence through material superiority. The transformation of American automotive manufacturing to military production demonstrated industrial flexibility impossible in command economies. Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, and Fisher Body converted automobile assembly lines to tank production in timelines measured in months, not years. The arsenal of democracy mobilized industrial capacity that exceeded the combined industrial output of Germany, Japan, and Italy. American factories didn't just produce more tanks, they revolutionized the concept of military-industrial production itself. American production methods eliminated German advantages earned through engineering excellence. A Tiger tank represented 300,000 man-hours of production time. A Sherman tank represented 10,000 man-hours. The 30-1 labor efficiency differential meant Americans could accept 30-fold higher losses and achieve resource parity. But Americans didn't accept higher losses. They achieved comparable or better loss ratios while maintaining production advantages that made losses irrelevant. German tactical superiority couldn't overcome American industrial superiority. Better training, better equipment, and better tactics became meaningless when confronted with opponents who could absorb catastrophic losses and return to combat strength within weeks. The waste inherent in American production exceeded German combat capability. Discarded material, rejected components, testing consumption, and training expenditure represented industrial capacity surplus that had no equivalent in German production. Americans could afford waste that exceeded enemy total capacity. The single act of rejecting components that failed quality inspection, components that would have been acceptable in German production, represented industrial abundance that made material competition hopeless. June 14, 1944, Oberst Heinrich von Kluge had laughed at American toy tanks. August 19, 1944. Von Kluge died inside a German Panther destroyed by American tank destroyers in 14 seconds. His mockery became history's most catastrophic miscalculation. The officer who had dismissed American industrial capacity perished in a vehicle that cost 30 times more labor to produce than the weapons that killed him. His death represented not military defeat, but industrial inevitability. The collision between limited production capacity and unlimited manufacturing capability. The 21st Panzer Division entered Normandy with 146 tanks. By September 1944, the division possessed 7 operational tanks. American armored divisions engaged during the same period increased tank strength through continuous replacement. The 3rd Armored Division lost 247 tanks during Normandy operations. The division finished September 1944 with 267 operational tanks, 20 more than it started with despite losing more tanks than the entire 21st Panzer Division possessed. The mathematics demonstrated industrial warfare reality. Tactical performance matters less than replacement capacity. Victory belongs to nations that produce faster than opponents destroy. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace or underestimating free people's productive capacity invites catastrophic miscalculation. Industrial democracies possess latent capability that emerges when threatened. Free workers, motivated by survival rather than coercion, achieve productivity that totalitarian systems cannot match. The Sherman tank represented not superior engineering, but superior industrial organization. The transformation of automotive manufacturing into military production at scales that made tactical superiority strategically irrelevant. Nations that mock democratic industrial capacity make the same error von Kluge made in June 1944. They calculate based on current capability rather than potential capacity. They assess peacetime production rather than wartime mobilization. They measure present output rather than industrial flexibility. The mathematics of industrial warfare remain constant. Production capacity determines strategic outcomes, and democratic industrial economies possess mobilization capacity that command economies cannot equal.